Next hour, I'm going to break down the demonization of the Tea Parties. The media saying that they're terrorists about to strike. Meanwhile, Rick Perry was swept back into office, an unprecedented third term, by posing as a Tea Party person. So you have the Republican leadership in some areas mimicking it, other Republican leadership attacking it, the Democrats attacking it. We're going to decode all this in the next hour. Declan McCullagh, writer and editor over at CNET News, one of the preeminent news websites out there covering all things technology and internet. I mean, there's so many other things I want to cover with you, but briefly, I wanted to get Jason Bermas, who's been here with us the last year, working on his new film that's going to be out April 15th. And, of course, that is Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. But Jason has gone over the cybersecurity bill, and I wanted Jason Bermas to just briefly read over some of the subsections to Declan McCullagh and get his take on it. Then we're going to cover the latest other things that Declan's most concerned with. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, one of the most alarming things in this bill, outside of the FCC takeover, outside of the non-profit organizations they will prop up as front groups, is Section 12, Federal Cyber Scholarship for Service Program. Now, earlier you were talking about all high school and college students. It's much worse than that.
Yeah, we know Obama has city year and wants national compulsory service. He's on record. Now, this is grabbing the kids out of schools.
Absolutely grabbing the kids out of school. Subsection 4 shall provide a procedure for identifying promising K through 12 students for participation in summer work and internship programs that would lead to certification for what? Federal Information Technology Workforce Standards. So they're
and it says that anybody later in there that's going to work with any IT-related stuff has to have this government certification. We'll get to that in a moment. What's your take on this, Declan McCullagh?
It's unnecessary. Out of the realm of things to get worried about, I'll be more worried about active surveillance and tracking and monitoring. So I don't get as alarmed about this bill, but this is an area where reasonable people can disagree.
But I think this is where they're coming in and engineering the society and creating the industry of surveillance and control.
They are spending a lot of money, hundreds of billions of dollars, on surveillance and control. And this is yet another example. I don't see why we need the federal government to spend this much money. I mean, I think it's something like the agencies already spend $6 billion a year on cybersecurity and about a third of $1 billion on research, and this is aimed at ramping up those efforts. But this is, I mean, you don't need the federal government to decide whether cybersecurity is more important than, say, biotech. I mean, this is command and control. This isn't something.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I think biotech is the real danger because of the incredible disasters that can take place from it. Jason, go over some more subsections for him and get his take on it.
Absolutely, Alex. What really alarms me about the K through 12 students is that in order to get these scholarships, you have to work for the government. You have to work for the federal government. And when you see an economy that's totally faltering, totally falling down, of course you're going to take these scholarships, Alex. And these are young, impressionable minds. They're going to be the ones that are trained to watch the CCTV cameras and the drones. Well,
let's get into some other sections for him.
Absolutely. Let's move into how they're creating a cybersecurity advisory panel. They'll have real-time cybersecurity dashboards where everything will be watched and monitored. They want to do this regionally as well. They want to make sure that the infrastructure is not only federalized, Alex, but it's in your local and state government.
And they say they give it sections of it to private corporations, and then you have all these sweetheart deals. It's like Chertoff, making the order for the body scanners, and then he gets money from it. I mean, isn't this also a big boon to the military-industrial surveillance grid, where they get to make all these big profits off cybersecurity? Declan McCullagh?
Right. It's along the same vein. I mean, there are lots of problems with this. I mean, the first is where in the Constitution does give the government explicit authority to do this. I haven't found it. I mean, maybe eventually it'll be unearthed. There's also a secondary question of if these people conducting surveillance or watching the dashboards. And I'm not as familiar with the bill as Jason. I've skimmed it, but I haven't actually written about it.
Can you speak up for us, Declan?
Sure. There's the folks who are running the or monitoring the dashboards. I'm not familiar with the bill as Jason is. I've skimmed it, but I haven't actually written about it. If we could, these people were paragons of virtue. The platonic ideal of civil servants that it could be trusted perfectly, then maybe it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But the problem is that civil servants, bureaucrats are human. They have flaws. The surveillance programs are abused. And who's going to watch the watchers?
Exactly. Let's get into some more subsections. Jason?
Well, you talked a lot about standardizing software, so I want to read that subsection as well. This is Section 6, and we're putting this all under NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, that we both know have been corrupt in the past. This is subsection 5. Standard software configuration. The Institute shall establish standard configurations consisting of security settings for operating system softwares and software utilities widely used in the federal government, by government contractors, and grantees, and in the private sector owned critical infrastructure, but everything to them is critical.
Then they define critical infrastructure, any IT, down to anybody that has a company that serves 100 or more.
That's right. In fact, they have special, this is in subsection 6, right here, make loans on a selective short-term basis of items of advanced cybersecurity countermeasures to small businesses with less than 100 employees. They're going after everybody, big and small, to get this grid into place, Alex.
I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to finish up with Declan McCullagh from CNET News. Let's have you back in the last 15, 20 minutes of the show to go through that subsection by subsection, because I've covered it a few months ago. You covered it a few weeks ago. But we need to go back over this because this is getting ready to probably pass the Congress. Declan McCullagh, any word on when this could pass? It's passed the House.
I think it passed the House in early February, but a lot of things passed the House and die in the Senate. I wouldn't say. I'd say the odds are that are very good. It will not become law this year, but in part that also depends on whether this becomes a controversial piece of legislation that people are actually calling their senators about or not. And I don't know whether that's going to happen.
Okay, we got about 8 minutes left with you, Declan McCullagh, CNET News. Fire out the website for CNET. Tell folks the best place to go on the CNET website and read your articles.
The best place to go is news.com. That's news.com. Pretty easy to get to, and you can type in my name, Beclan, and then in the search box you'll find far too much.
Well, you do write a lot of great articles. I learn a lot from you. What are you most concerned about with Big Brother surveillance?
It's actually cell phones right now. Is what I've spent a lot of time thinking about and writing about in the last month or so. And there are two aspects. The first is tracking, and the second is examining them. Tracking is probably more interesting. There's an open question about whether or not the federal government can track the location of your cell phone without a warrant. Courts have split on this. The Supreme Court has not yet ruled on this. And it depends in part on whether the courts are going to say that the Fourth Amendment applies, that is the Constitution's reasonable expectation of privacy and unreasonable searches and seizures applies. There's the Bush administration made the argument that warrantless tracking is perfectly okay, and the Obama administration has made exactly the same argument. Its DOJ is saying that warrantless tracking is permitted because Americans enjoy no reasonable expectation of privacy in their cell phone's whereabouts. And this is an important issue because your cell phone is a radio transmitter and a receiver. Wherever it talks to radio towers and through triangulation or through GPS, the radio towers have a pretty good idea of where you are.
And now cell phones are becoming your briefcase, your calendar, your wallet, everything in computers, as you know, but for some of the audience that may not know, is going into cell phones. They are now, like my iPhone, is just a little mini laptop. And so they're saying you have no privacy in your own home business or your own corporate business. And that dovetails now. First, it's the borders. Now regular airports inside the country are seizing people's laptops, phones without, and they put a ruling out 2 days ago on this, without any perception that you've done anything wrong. No due process, no probable cause. What an amazing statement that we'll do whatever we want with your cell phones. We don't care.
Okay, so that's the second half of this. Let's put tracking aside for the moment and talk about examining your cell phones, which is really more of a privacy threat in some ways because Your cell phone knows more about you than maybe your closest friends do. It knows where you're going to be through your calendar. It knows where you had dinner. It knows who you've been emailing with and all that. It's basically like a diary, and probably even more personal than your laptop nowadays. And so this is another unresolved legal issue. When police arrest you, and maybe you're not charged with a crime, maybe you're just detained, maybe you're at a protest and you're arrested and released an hour later without any charges being filed, can they look at your cell phone? Can they plug it into their police computer and copy over all the content? The court power split on this one as well. The Obama administration and many local prosecutors in the Bush administration, their answer is that warrantless searches are perfectly constitutional during arrest.